ما عاد بهالدنيا محل أمين، دامت الزعامات وناس كانت إخوان عم بتفرق بين فلان وعلان، نامت النعامات وتملى فضانا شوشرة وحكمت علينا ما اختارا، دامت الزعامات والناس بالمرة فقدت أمل، ما عادت تعرف شو العمل، نامت النعامات دامت الزعامات، 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 نامت النعامات دامت النعامات، نامت النعامات دامت الزعامات. من على بساط الأمان، من وراء غبار الركام، لا ما ضل إلي ما حل، أنزل وأرتاح أركي هالجناح عصفورة مكسورة
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Abraham Initiative's virtually a gala dinner. I'm Alex Brummer, the chairman of the Abraham Initiatives here in the UK, which, as you know from your gala kit, which should have arrived in the post, is the British arm of an Israeli NGO working for social equality and a shared society in Israel. As some of you who have joined our earlier online meetings this year will know, our cause has had a good pandemic. Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews have been at the front line working together in the hospitals, care homes, and pharmacies fighting the pandemic. But it has also been a year when fundraising has been rather difficult. Strained budgets, financial caution, and a huge variety of competing causes are making it hard to maintain our programs. And you'll be hearing much more of that in the next hour or so. I'm delighted that we have managed to gather together such a brilliant crowd this evening, including many new faces, and wanted to welcome them too. I also wanted to let you know that we're having our own Brexit here. Our brilliant development officer, Nicola Nathan, who's been with us for 9 years, is stepping down as development officer after unstinting service to the cause, including tonight's arrangements. She will be really sorely missed. But I'm also pleased to say we've found a powerful new replacement in Dean Lesser, who emerged from a string of candidates, a field of candidates. I'm sure will be making himself known to all of you in the coming days and weeks. Enjoy the evening, and if I dare say so, dig deep. This is important stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. And thanks everybody for joining us for what promises to be an inspiring, entertaining and informative evening. I'm Dr. Ariel Khan, a novelist and university lecturer, an enthusiastic trustee of the Abraham Initiatives in the UK. I'm delighted to be your compere for tonight. Part of what drew me to the Abraham Initiatives was the diversity and shared passion of those involved and their profound commitment to effecting real change on the ground in targeted and specific ways to foster trust, solidarity, and cooperation, seeking to transform Israel's divisions into a shared society that benefits everyone. As Alex said, the pandemic we're currently experiencing has brought home to many of us issues of inequality and social division, and the need to forge strong links to support all of those within our communities who may be at more risk or vulnerable, as well as the crucial role education plays in shaping a constructive future. This experience can enable us to more deeply understand the current situation in Israel with all its challenges and opportunities. The issue of building a shared society in Israel, which is key to the Abraham Initiatives, is very nuanced and full of challenging complexities. Motivations for peace building and social justice may differ amongst Israelis across the world and indeed amongst our audience tonight. But for all of us, the crux of the matter is that neglecting the equality of or discriminating against the Arab community, who form over 20% of Israel's population, is simply not a viable option. The Abraham Initiative walks a fine balance to ensure we're respected and credible amongst both Jewish and Arab communities, and the diversity of our speakers this evening is a testimony to how critical this issue is to Israel at every level, socially, politically, and economically. Tonight, you will be hearing from internationally renowned educator Rabbi Naftali Rothenberg, Arab MK Ayman Odeh, and the celebrated Israeli-Palestinian singer-songwriter Mira Awad about why the Abraham Initiatives matters to them, as well as gaining insights from May Arrow, one of our dedicated educators, describing her experience of change on the ground. You'll also have the privilege of hearing from our co-CEOs of the Abraham Initiatives, Tabet and Amnon, about the ways we're already making a difference and how you can help us go even further. I invite you to email your questions to Dean using the link below your video, and time permitting, we'll post a few of these to the CEOs directly. If you have any technical issues, Dean is also the person to go to. He also emailed you your link this morning, so you should have his email. And he and we will do the best to sort out any difficulties you might have. So come, let's discover an Israel behind the headlines. Our first speaker tonight is the extraordinary Rabbi Naftali Rothenberg. He's a senior research fellow at the Van Leer Jerusalem Institute, the rabbi and spiritual leader of Har Hadar in Jerusalem, and among other worldwide affiliations, he's an associate of the programs on law and religion and the project on love and religion in Regent's Park College at Oxford University.
Dear friends and supporters of Abraham Initiatives, Israel is a nation state. I will address the complex issue of majority and minority relations, an issue that it is in the heart of the blessed work of Abraham Initiatives. Democracy in a nation state cannot be detached from the particular identity of the nation, an identity that is expressed in its culture and tradition. The state of Israel should not be a Jewish state that is also democratic, and also not a democracy that is also Jewish. Democracy must speak in a Jewish language, and Judaism in a democratic language. And something else. Sectoral affiliation of democracy is anti-democratic, and politicization of human rights is justification for violating them. Whoever values democracy in Israel must attach importance to the values of the nation, its culture and its tradition. Anyone who values nationality must strengthen democracy and human rights for all. One of the inherent failures of democracy is that the majority will use its power only for its own benefit and to the disadvantage of the minority. Our rabbis in the Mishnah, Talmud, and Midrashim understood the danger of majority tyranny and therefore established a long line of laws, commandments from the Torah, a regulation done by the sages to ensure the peace of the minority. Our Torah did not, under any circumstances, see the land of Israel for Jews only. The sages linked the right of residence of non-Jews to the rights of livelihood, the right of living to the right of make live. And to improve living conditions together with Jews. They also established equality in the wage rights of Jewish and non-Jewish employees. This is many years ago, thousands of years ago. And a long list of laws on welfare, health, and more. I'm talking about key laws in the Mishnah and the Talmud. It is important to study these texts in books, but it is not enough. We need to look around and see the others who are not others. Those we live together, but often ignore their existence, their rights, their living conditions. One of the many examples of proper sharing is the study of charitable practices established by the rabbis in Tiberias, which was 1800 years ago a common city for Jews and non-Jews. I quote from the Tosefta, Gittin 3:13. A city governed by both Jews and non-Jews must collect the money from Jews and non-Jews alike. And to spend the money, it's written here, poor Jews and non-Jews are to be supported equally. Poor Jews and non-Jews are to be supported equally. This is the Jewish language that we need to speak and also apply. To my delight, there are rabbis, educators, and even politicians sometimes who speak like this. Yet in the same time, we hear other voices. No, I'm not talking now about incitement, which is a terrible phenomenon. I'm talking about different sections and groups in a Jewish society that fear from human and civil rights for all. Some propose replacing the rights discourse with an obligation discourse. To this, I send the list of rights and ask, which right are you willing to give up? Some are awaiting the granting of civil rights in the performance of duties. To them I say two things. The state does no good to a citizen, no favor, when it grants him or her rights such as equality in residence, work, education, health, and so on. And to this you must add, God himself does not prescribe our rights, even in fulfilling the obligation, the commandment, the mitzvot, blessed be He, as imposed on us. This is also what the words of the prophet Micha refer to. יגיד לך אדם מה טוב, ומה השם דורש ממך, כי אם עשות משפט ואהבת חסד, והצנע לכת עם אלוהיך. It has been told you, O human, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, that if you do justice and love benevolence and humble yourself with your God. Thank you. Be healthy. Warm and loving greetings from Jerusalem.
Thank you, Rabbi Rothenberg, for illuminating how the values of equality lie at the core of Jewish life and tradition, and explaining how these key sources highlight the need to care for, support, and enable the minority. In order for such a vision of equality to be realized, we need to learn to listen to the voices from within that minority. Such listening can be challenging, but it's vital to the work we do. To this end, I'm honored to introduce our next speaker, MK Ayman Odeh, leader of the Joint List in the Knesset and a strong advocate for the need for building the Jewish and Arab partnerships, which are crucial to the prosperity and security of Israel.
My friends, I would like to thank you for inviting me to address this important forum of supporters. As autocratic leaders closely cooperate across borders, continents, and oceans, it's critical that we too work together for peace, equality, democracy, and social justice. We must work harder, be smarter, and hold the deep belief that failure is not an option. And indeed, the Abraham Initiative is an important partner in all four of those struggles. You know, just as I know, that our only future is a shared Arab-Jewish future. But before we continue to speak of our vision for the future, we must first acknowledge the challenges we face in the present. Our struggle has always had two main arms: peace and equality. We know that neither may be achieved without the other. Netanyahu also understands this. That's why he's attacking us on both fronts with a unified strategy. Economic peace, a nicer term for bribery. In accordance with Trump's deal of the century, Netanyahu has normalized relations with Gulf states, This premature peace deal was signed to allow Israel to continue to deepen the occupation and stop the establishment of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel without consequence. This dangerous move is part of the same deal of the century that envisions one state where Palestinians will not be equal citizens, expected to give up their right to self-determination in exchange for the promise of a huge sums of money. Our answer to him: money will never replace freedom. As Palestinian Arab citizens, we also face unique challenges. I address you today as a second-class citizen whose oppression became legislation when the nation-state law was ratified in 2018. Despite political oppression, Palestinian Arab society in Israel has managed to grow economically in recent years. Here too, Netanyahu has attempted to use the strategy of economic peace to rectify economic discrimination, a small fraction of money instead of political equality. Our answer remains the same: money will never replace equality. Indeed, we are facing grave challenges under a failing government. Instead of tending to 1 million unemployed citizens, failing social services, and a dangerous virus that continues to spread exponentially between endless closures, government ministers are enveloped in petty politics and advancing their personal careers. But there is hope. In recent months, COVID-19 spread quickly through Arab cities. Thanks to the dedicated work and deep responsibility of Arab municipalities and public cooperation, countless lives have been saved, though much work remains. There's another beam of hope in these trying times. 2 months ago, I marched alongside 2 mothers who lost their sons to the plague of violent crime that has already taken 93 Arab citizens' lives just this year. After marching from Haifa to Jerusalem through major Arab cities in the heat of August, we met President Rivlin. The struggle for a safe and gun-free environment continues thanks to the hard work of partners like the Abraham Initiative. As we look toward our vision of a shared Arab-Jewish future, there are more struggles we must keep in mind. Supporting more young Arab adults as they grow in universities across the country and meeting the challenges of cities with mixed populations. I have faith that with hard work and strong partners like Dr. Thabit Abu Ras and Amnon Be'eri Sulciano at the Abraham Initiative, we will succeed. We have everything to gain, and failure is not an option. Thank you once again for your invaluable support. Thank you.
As you can hear, Ayman shares our passionate commitment to creating peace, equality, democracy, and social justice in Israel, as well as a clear-eyed understanding of the challenges of making this happen within Israel's political framework. Ayman mentioned one of the Abraham Initiative's key programs working with cities in Israel with mixed populations. There are further details on your shared living postcard. You don't have to agree with all of Ayman's views to share his key conviction that our only future is a shared Jewish-Arab future. And now for something completely different. It gives me huge pleasure to welcome back the extraordinary singer-songwriter Mira Awad, a proud member of the Abraham Initiative's International Board, who describes herself as Israeli-Palestinian. She will sing the first of 2 songs she's recorded for you, setting the work of acclaimed Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish to music. The first song celebrates his love for an Israeli woman, Tamar Ben Ami, whom he's immortalized as Rita.
Hello, dear friends of the Abraham Initiatives. This is Mira Awad, and I'm so happy to be part again of the UK Gala. Unfortunately, this time not in person, but hey, let's hope that it happens next year. So have fun this evening. And now I'm going to dedicate a song to you. This is a poem written by Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish. It's called Rita, and it's about a relationship with a Jewish woman. Rita. بين ريتا وعيوني بندقية، والذي يعرف ريتا ينحني ويصلي لعيون عسلية. وأنا قبلت ريتا عندما كانت صغيرة، أذكر كيف التصقت بي، غطت ساعدي أحلى ضفيرة. ريتا، 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 ريتا. اسم ريتا كان عيدا في فمي، جسم ريتا كان عرسا في دمي. وأنا ضعت بريتا 2 وتعاهدنا على أجمل كأس، واحترقنا في نبيذ الشفتين، وولدنا مرتين. ريتا، 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 ريتا. كان يا مكان يا صمت العشية، قمري هاجر في الصبح بعيدا في العيون العسلية، والمدينة كنست كل المغني. وريتا بين ريتا وعيوني بندقية. ريتا، 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 ريتا.
Wasn't that extraordinary? Thank you, Mira. For those of us not fluent in Arabic, Darwish writes in this poem that I remember Rita the way a sparrow remembers its stream. We made promises over the most beautiful of cups, and we burned in the wine of our lips, and we were born again. Speaking of streams, now it's time for a deep dive into the heart of what the Abraham Initiatives does. Someone who's deeply versed in why knowing one another's language and culture is at the heart of building a shared future is our next speaker, the gifted educator May Arrow, part of our shared learning project, who will introduce herself and give an insider's view of this crucial part of our work. She will be followed by our amazing co-CEOs, Dr. Tabet Abu Ras and Amnon Be'eri Suliziano, who will frame the project May is involved with in the context of our wider work, giving tangible examples of the impact of the Abraham Initiatives and revealing the root cause of discrimination against Arab citizens. At the end of their conversation, I hope to ask them some of your questions, so please, if you hadn't done so yet, pop your question across in an email to Dean on the link below the video.
Good evening, everyone. My name is May Araw. I am عربية فلسطينية مسلمة. 15 years ago, I started my career as an Arabic teacher at Jewish schools. I did it for 5 years, and then I became a Hebrew teacher at Arab schools. At the same time, I started writing materials and curriculums for teaching Arabic, language and culture, and giving professional guidance for teachers, both Arabs and Jews. Today, I'm the director of the Language as a Cultural Bridge at the Abraham Initiatives. My specialty is teaching languages and cultural competence. Part of my job is to teach spoken languages, spoken Arabic for special groups, such as journalists, public figures, mayors and members of the municipality, academic and administrative staff at Institute of Higher Learning. Lately, thanks to the Zoom technology, I managed to teach an intensive Arabic course for English speakers from the USA, over 300 participants of the Abraham Initiative supporters and friends. Please repeat after me. كل الاحترام. It means well done. Shukran. Thank you. A few years ago, one of my students, a young Jewish man who was a student at university and worked as a security guard at the hospital, told me that during his work, he asked every visitor to open their bags. But he noticed how uncomfortable felt the Arab visitors doing that. I suggested him to use 2 words in Arabic. لو سمحت, if you please, and shukran, thank you. A week later, he came back and said, unbelievable, it works. They even smile now. At the end of the course, the same student approached me again and asked for help. He was very upset when he told me what happened to him. I asked one of the construction workers at the hospital to stop what he was doing and to move his tools to another place. Though I used لو سمحت and shukran, as you taught me, still, when he left, he seemed very angry. I do not understand what the problem was. How old is he? I asked. About 50, he said. You are much younger, my friend. There is a proper way to approach an older man. You need to show more respect. The next time, try to open the conversation with يعطيك العافية. It means, I can see you're busy, I wish you health, and I'm asking for your attention. Only 1 month ago, the mayor of the mixed city, Ramle, Michael Vidal, another one of my students, decided for the first time in his life to send 2 voice messages in Arabic. One to the municipality employees and one to the Arab residents of the city of Ramleh. I couldn't be more proud. If you live in the Middle East, a country where 20% of the citizens are native speakers of Arabic, you must learn Arabic. Otherwise, you are like living on the beach and not knowing how to swim. With few exceptions, Arabs and Jewish youth in Israel attend different schools in separate school systems. They live divided lives in which there is minimal exposure to each other's culture, language, or narrative. The Abraham Initiatives models solutions on the ground and uses those models to advocate for policy change at the highest level. The best example of this is our work in the Shared Learning Initiative. This program challenges the isolation between our communities and shows that partnership is in everyone's best interest. I would be pleased to share with you a short film which shows the activity of this program. This film was made a couple of months before COVID struck. So you will see everyone meeting in person. Today, the program is running online. Thank you. Enjoy.
When the students meet each other and start talking to each other and start discovering, oh, we like the same YouTubers, we follow the same Instagram influencers, and all of a sudden they're doing TikTok dances together. It's an amazing process to watch. They're learning that in actual fact, they're not much different from each other. When they're in the shoes of the other, they can understand the other more. The Shared Learning Program is a program that brings together Arab and Jewish schools at the middle school level to teach the students together as a group of one community. The students actually meet in 8 separate occasions, each time in one of the 2 schools. So 4 times at the Jewish school, 4 times at the Arabic school.
بقلب الصافي عندنا معلمتين، معلمة عربية ومعلمة يهودية.
The program was specifically and intentionally designed to be in English because English is a universal language, it's an international language, and it's a language that both the Arab students and the Jewish students learn in their schools. However, when they come to meet, they know that they have the challenge of knowing the other's language, whereby English is actually a neutral and a natural playing ground for them. The challenge is the same for both sides, and this is an important starting point to make sure that the students are working at the same level from the very beginning. Students work together, they learn together, and they speak together in English. And this is a great step forward for the students who don't have much opportunity to talk in English elsewhere during their daily classes.
What else is different when I'm speaking a language?
You can understand everything when it's face to face, not like when it's on a computer or behind a screen.
المعلمات استفادوا وكل معلمة أثرت الثانية بما تملك من مهارة ومن تفكير وبالمعرفة.
תוך כדי העבודה עם מייסה, למדתי עוד דרכי פעולה אחרות, בין אם זה עזרים לשיעור ובין אם זה ההוראה עצמה, גם מעבר לפרויקט.
كان عندنا بعض المخاوف من هذا المشروع باعتبار انه هون في تلاقي حضارات مختلفه، تلاقي فكر مختلف بين بعض البعض.
بالاول جيت شوي توتر بس بعدين خلت الطاقه الايجابيه تملاني عشان اجي مع طاقه ايجابيه.
לאט לאט עם הפעילויות והיכרות והשיח היה ניתן לראות שהם מתחברים אחד לשני. תלמידים ישבו בקבוצות מעורבות, כן דיברו אחד עם השני מעבר לתכנים, גם בהפסקה.
זה היה כיף כזה להכיר את האזור הזה ואת התלמידים פה. וזה כאילו לא מה שאני רגילה אליו, וזה כאילו היה מרענן כזה.
إشي كتير حلو لأنه منه بتتعلموا إنجليزي، منه بتتعرفوا على ثقافة جديدة.
The values behind the Shared Learning Program are values of cooperation, diversity, empathy, acceptance. The vision for the program is that it becomes part of every student's life in Israel, that all Arab and Jewish students study together that it becomes a part of their daily life. It becomes something that they do on a daily basis, having a shared life and a shared education together with the others. We invite you to come and share our program. בוא לקחת חלק, تعالوا كونوا جزء من البشرة. When the students meet each other.
So what is the Abraham Initiatives? Who are we and what is our importance? Firstly, we are one of very few organizations in Israel that are based of cooperation and equality between Jews and Arabs. We were also the first ones to recognize the importance of the issue of coexistence between the communities. We understood just how bad can things become for all parties should rifts and alienation will deepen. If you ask me, what is the business of the Abraham Initiatives? I will answer that in short, we are peace builders. It's true that usually the term peace is used in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or the relation between Israel and its neighboring countries. But it's also the truth that Israel is the only place where so many Arabs and Jews interact and live next to each other. We are peace builders because we construct the way for Jews and Arabs to study, work, and simply live together in Israel, where 80% are Jews and 20% are Arabs. But we are also making possible the vision of peace in our region. No one knows for sure how our region will look like in the next generations as the Middle East is changing dramatically now. So we can be sure of one thing: no one is going anywhere, and Jews and Arabs are here to stay. Whether we will reach a two-state solution, which means that Israel and Palestine will exist peacefully next to each other, or one state which will include Israelis and Palestinians, or as more and more people are thinking, some sort of confederation between Israel and Palestine. One thing is sure: the ideas and the practices and work of the Abraham Initiatives will always be extremely helpful and useful in every scenario.
Good evening from Tel Aviv. So how do we promote our vision? So how do we promote our vision? Over the years, we have discovered that developing practical solutions for how Jews and Arabs should live together make sense to many people, including those in charge of public policy. We have learned that by reaching out to government officials and offering our ideas and expertise and solutions, we can engage with them in a constructive way and lower barriers and objections. Oftentimes, we realized that we can help them to better achieve their goals. The fact that we are a fully integrated organization, which is connected and embedded in the Arab community, is another invaluable asset. When we articulate the needs of the Arab citizens in any given field, we know exactly what we are talking about, and we are appreciated for that. And lastly, when we carry out real programs and able to base our policy recommendations on lessons we learn from them on the ground, it is the most convincing way to go. Our motto is lead by example, or as we prefer to describe it, advocacy through action. Let me share with you some concrete examples of our work. In an almost completely separated education system for Jews and Arab students in Israel, we are developing and introducing a number of educational programs that bring students to meet, study, develop partnerships and friendships. We work with universities as well and colleges to help them become inclusive and welcoming to more and more Arab youngsters who seek higher education. We help dozens of Israeli organizations to offer better services to the Arab citizens, from businesses to municipalities, media outlets, universities, and charities. To all of them, we offer cultural competency courses. After decades of under-policing, which has resulted in a surge of violence and crime in our villages, we are now helping the police to change its attitudes towards the Arab citizens and to see them first and foremost as citizens who deserve to be protected and served. And lastly, we are working in more and more mixed cities where Jews and Arabs live side by side to foster cooperation and good relations. These were only a few examples that makes us effective in what we do, and this is also why we need you by our side. Thank you very much.
Great. So thank you so much to Amnon and Tabet for your fascinating and illuminating focus on the ways in which the Abraham Initiative is engaging with the issues and problems that we've been discussing this evening. I do have a few questions for you. The first of these is, how is the Abraham Initiative able to work with government at the same time as criticizing some of its policies? And that question is from Laura Scher.
I believe that sometimes the government is doing something that really hurt or harm the Arab-Jewish relations, such as discriminatory legislation, such as the nation-state law. So we really discriminate against Arabs. It can really inflame Arab-Jewish relations in Israel. And our duty, we feel it's our duty to try to correct bad things that's happening in Israel. At the same time, we sometimes criticize the Arab leadership also. That when we think that they are making some mistakes, at the same time, we really work with the government, with Arab leadership. We just kind of holding the stick from both sides. So we think it's fine to do it. Israel is a democratic country, and we don't have to agree with the government with all of its practices and policies.
Great, thank you for that, Taba. That's really important and insightful. I've got another question for either of you. It starts off with some positive feedback, which is a great way to start a question. So it's very interesting to hear all the speakers so far, and I strongly support equality between Jewish Israelis and Israeli Arabs, and fully support a Palestinian state. I deplore what Netanyahu is doing to the country. However, I fear that equality and non-discrimination will not exist without a cessation of violence on both sides. What are your views on this? So that cessation of violence is necessary for all of the things that you're hoping for to take place.
So I would recognize, first of all, note that within Israel, there is no violence between Jews and Arabs on a national, which is based on national tensions. There are gaps, there is discrimination, there is alienation, but there is no violence inside of Israel between Jews and Arabs, which derives from national tensions. There is violence on Israel's borders. There is violence in the occupied territories, but between Israeli Jews and Israeli Palestinians, there is no violence, and our goal is to keep it this way.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Amnon. And finally, one question about some seismic events that have been taking place in America and their potential impact on your work. The question is, how do you think the election of Joe Biden might enable and assist the Abraham Initiative's vision of a shared society?
Well, I believe that let's just tell the truth that Arabs in Israel really cheered the election of Biden, of the Arabs, and at the same time, most of the Jews in Israel is really disappointed of Biden's win. So still, based in the history of our work, we have better relation with the American embassy, I believe, under democratic regimes. In the last 5 years, we felt some tensions because maybe the personality of the ambassador, a little relationship with the Arab community, less scholarships came from the American from the foreign affairs. So I believe we expect really improvement in pushing our agenda of shared society, shared future between Arab and Jewish citizens in Israel.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tabet. I've got a question again about our relationship, the Abraham Initiative's relationship with religious leaders, and it goes like this. Do you engage specifically with religious leaders in the communities? And do you find a different approach is needed or a different response is received from Muslim, Christian, or Jewish religious leaders? And are there any programs that Abraham Initiative is running through religious institutions or places of worship?
Our engagement with religious leaders connected to public awareness campaigns that we are leading in critical issues like violence and crime, domestic violence, reckless driving, etc., within Arab communities. We believe that religious leaders have a lot of influence in their communities, and we often try to harness them to ask them to help us convince people to change their behavior and attitudes.
Brilliant, thank you. Similarly, another question about kind of challenges that the Abraham Initiative might be facing for the wider society. The question is as follows. Do you encounter resistance to your programs from other civil society groups or the Israeli or Palestinian authorities? If so, could you describe a couple of examples and how you have tried to overcome this? Thanks.
Well, I believe that we have a good relationship with the other shared society NGOs that really active in Israel here. Actually, we work in cooperation almost in every single project that we have. We are, again, an organization that we are not working cross-border, so we are not engaging in working with the Palestinian Authority and so forth. We work only inside Israel. So I don't feel that we have certain challenges that really annoying or bothering us from cooperating with other organizations. We are working with universities, with the workplace, with the you name it, in the media and in other NGOs without any problems.
Okay. Great to hear. Yes, Amnon, did you want to have something to add?
Yeah, just to add that sadly, the notion of coexistence, the notion of equality between Jews and Arabs is not a consensus in Israel. In Israel, our issue, and we need to recognize this, our issue is disputed. There are those in Israel, and not few, that think that Israel should be a state for the Jews and only for the Jews, and that Jews should have priority in almost any realm of society. So just to say, this is one of the challenges that we need to recognize. We're facing the fact that we're trying to promote an agenda or a cause which is not consensual.
Great. Yes, exactly. It's an important challenge, and you're doing so much good work to overcome and engage with that. I've got, I think, time for one last question, and it's really about how do we engage specifically with the Arab community? And the question is, how does the Abraham Initiative, what is the Abraham Initiative doing to encourage political participation among the Arab community in Israel?
Well, actually, we have a full project of representation and participation in our organization. Actually, we believe that without engagement of the Arab community, things will not work. So we are encouraging people to. We believe that Arab citizens should be in every realm of society. And we feel that we talk with almost all institutions in Israel, encouraging them to participate, to engage. And we see that, we think that political integration, for example, is very important. Through political integration, we can reach other integration in different realms. So we are active in encouraging people to, for example, to turn their votes out and to be engaged in different institutions. And hopefully we will see Arabs are in every realms of society, not only in the hospitals, but to see them in the media, in NGOs, in the academy, everywhere. So by really engaging in our work, for example, in universities and other places, and we have different campaigns to encourage people to participate, to try to take part in for example, in fighting violence and the crime in the Arab society. And we see the results. We see that more and more people are participating, not only in the political realms, but also in other realms too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tabet, and thank you, Amnon. That's a great, I think, positive and hopeful note to end with our questions. You can always still email Dean, and people can follow up if there's information or anything that the speakers have said this evening which has attracted your interest, which you want to comment on or engage with. We'd love to hear from you. I want to offer a huge thank you to all of our speakers and all of the people who made this evening possible, but most of all to you, our guests, for giving your time and immersing yourself in the vibrant voices and vivid visions of the Abraham Initiatives. I hope that, like me, you've been inspired and enthused by this amazing evening. Now is your chance to be part of the change you'd like to see in Israel. Now is the time to promote the Abraham Initiative's core values: equality, human rights, and social justice. Time to help widen access to inclusive education, to build trust between communities, and support our efforts to ensure the personal safety of all. You can help make real, meaningful change at both a systemic and personal level. With your support, we can continue to implement policies that have transformed people's attitudes, changed lives, and sow the seeds of a truly shared society. Donation information is available on your screen, and the live link will remain on your screens after Mira's final song, which is going to be played for you shortly. Note that the donation link at the bottom right of your screen is to the Big Give. For this week only, your donations will be matched, so your generous contributions can have even more impact. Other donation information has been emailed to you pre-event, and links will also be sent to you by email tomorrow. Mira will now serenade you with her beautiful setting of Darwish's resonant, relevant poem, asking us to think of others. So please, stay online, make a contribution, and make a difference. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience.
This is another poem by Mahmoud Darwish that I put to music. It's called Think of Others. وأنت تعد فطورك فكر بغيرك لا تنس قوت الحمام وأنت تخوض حروبك فكر بغيرك من يطلبون السلام. وأنت تسدد فاتورة الماء فكر بغيرك من يرضعون الغمام. وأنت تعود إلى بيتك فكر بغيرك لا تنسى شعب الخيام. وأنت تنام وتحصي الكواكب فكر بغيرك من لم يجد حيزا للمنام. وأنت تحرر نفسك بالاستعارات فكر بغيرك من فقدوا حقهم في الكلام. وأنت تفكر بالآخرين البعيدين فكر بنفسك قل ليتني شمعة في الظلام، ليتني شمعة في الظلام. As you prepare your evening meal, think of how the others feel. Don't forget to feed the hungry dove. As you wage your wars with guns, think of all the other ones, those who still believe in peace and love. As you pay for running water, think of someone's son or daughter, nursed by clouds beneath a starry dome. As you return from work tonight, think of others and their plight, those who live in camps and dream of home. As you lay your head to rest, dreaming deep, remember those who have no place to sleep. As you let your words run free and rhyme all tongue in cheek, remember those who've lost their very right to speak. And as you think of others far away, think of yourself and say, if only I could be a candle in the dark, I wish I were a candle in the dark. If only I could be, if only I could be a candle in the dark. ليتني 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 شمعة في الظلام.